So let's take a look at the second bug that we have on the page. The bug that we have is that we have this subscribe button. So if we click on it, it opens a drop down menu, and then there are a couple of options that the user can select from. The bug that we have is that the subscribe button is intended to be working on the hover effect. So like the expected result is that if we hover over that button, we should be opening that menu as well. It's not about clicking, it's about hovering as well. So let's see how we can tackle this. First things first, what we need to do is we need to check the place in which this event happens, which is the mouse over event, as it's like how we usually define such hover effects using JavaScript. So if we inspect that drop down for us, so here we can see that there is a click event that is coming from jQuery. We are not interested into having this function. We are not interested into the mouse over event. So if we if it's not here, then it might be into one of the parents, so we can just enable this ancestors. So here it shows all of the ancestors of that element, which is the anchor tag, and basically those are all of the elements that are added to the page. So for example, if we have any event listener that is added to the document itself, we can see it here that it's actually defined here, and also if there are any custom events that are defined, for example, here we can see that this Adobe third-party script is adding a custom event to the window element of the page. So we are interested into the mouse enter event, so let's check the mouse enter here. We can see here that there is this event that is defined over the drop down div element, which is this one. So if we inspect this element and then we just remove the ancestors, we can see here that there are two event listeners on this div element. So the first one, which is the mouse enter, and the second one, which is the mouse leave. We are basically interested into this mouse enter event. So if we click on that source of it, it will take us right to the handler of that on drop down toggle. So if we check that, we search for it here, you can just click Control F if you want to search any class or anything on the file that you are standing on. So we just copy paste on drop down toggle, and then we can see here that there are 3 matches for this function. So if we move through it, we can see here that there's this place in which the event listener is attached. So on mouse enter, we run this on drop down toggle. So let's just set a breakpoint and see what is happening. Okay, so we just set a normal breakpoint over here, and then we can start to see what is actually happening. So let's just hover over that button. So as soon as we hover over that drop down button, we can see that the execution got paused for us, so we can just try to move into it. So let's just click F9 in order to perform a normal step. So I'm going to demonstrate some of the things that we have on the right here. So there is this scope window that we have here. So basically the scope allows us to check the different scopes that we have on this script and to see the different values that each scope has. So for example, we have this local scope, which is this function here, this lexical scope. So this scope has different variables. So it has this audio player, which is the main class that we are pointing to, which is this one. Also, there are other local variables for that function. We have this didLeave, which is this parameter that is passed. We have what is called dropdown that we've just defined, and there are other things. So, for example, the values that are not yet available, it says here that value unavailable. So let's say that we are interested into checking the value of the deadleave. Like we want to watch that value to check what it actually results into. So we can set here a watch expression. So you can just write here any expression that you want, and it will be watched for us. So if we just write did leave and we hit enter, so we can see here that the value for it currently, which is false. Like if you want also to check the menu, we can just hit menu. You can see here that yet it's not available yet because we have not reached the point in which this const is defined. So let's just move through this code. So after moving after this line, we can see here that there is actually now a value for that menu expression that we've set, and it's basically just the drop down element that gets opened and closed. So here it says that if it did not leave, step into this function basically. So we are expecting that when we hit F9 to enter into this bracket here, this condition. So if we hit F9 once again, we can see here that we've just moved into it. Let's just step one by one over this. Okay, so this is like a common issue where we basically the engineers have, in which like you are debugging the code and suddenly you step into a third-party script, for example a jQuery, like Bootstrap, anything else, any extra third-party script, let's say, and we don't want to have that. Like we just interested in checking these this file. We are not interested into how jQuery, like for example, adds classes or removes classes. Like we have an option that DevTools gives us, which is the ability to ignore some of the scripts during the execution or the debugging. So if we move into this and we right click over that source, here we have this option which is add script to ignore list. So if we click on it, you can see here that this file got flagged for us that this script is on the debugger's ignore list. So let's just check this once again if this is actually working. So if we move back here, we just resume. Let's just set a breakpoint here and then we move to it. So let's just move over this. So there is this also jQuery remove class here. So if we step once again, you can see here that we did not end up into the jQuery files. We did not end up into this remove class method, and we've just skipped it. So this ignores list that we have, gives us lots of options on how to ignore the different files that we have on the debugger. So we can click here to configure this ignore list. So here we can just enable or disable. There are general exclusion rules. For example, if we want to exclude any scripts that are injected by extensions, or if there are any known third-party scripts from source maps, we can just remove. We can also here set any custom exclusion rules. For example, if we are interested in ignoring anything that is coming from jQuery, we can just add a pattern here. I have these kinds of patterns that I usually use, which allows me to ignore the jQuery, ignore the type of library, ignore anything that might be bothersome for me while debugging the code. Also, if you want to go to the ignore list directly without having to go into this, you can just hit Control Shift P on the keyboard and then type ignore list. So here it will show us the same window that I just shown you. Alright, let's get back into the bug that we were debugging. So we didn't see the problem, so let's just do it once again. This is the condition in which did leave, which is the other bit listener. We are not interested into that, so we can just skip, which is to resume the script execution. So let's just hover over it once again. So after hovering it, let's just step by step in order to see where this issue is coming from. So here, like if it did not leave, we want to remove the class of the menu here as a step. So menu, which is the menu that it opens and closes, that in which it has the content. And basically here it says that menu.remove class, which is the issue that we have. Like we are not interested into removing the show class, we are interested into showing that class, like to add that class to the menu. So that's the issue that we have. So if we move back, drop down toggle, we switch this into add class, we hit refresh once again, let's just hover over it. Let's just remove all of those breakpoints. Like since the issue got resolved, we can just click here and then all of those breakpoints are disabled for us. You can see here that as soon as we hovered over that button, all of the menu items are shown for us, which is the desired behavior that we are looking for. Okay, so let's move into the third bug that we have. So this bug is about this button. So basically, as soon as you click the button, it fetches and generates a dummy URL for us. The dummy URL expects a certain rule that is applied, that should be applied to it. So that rule is that it generates it fetches some dummy data, let's say for example, which is about a query params. So the query params, they should be into one of two strings, one which is lorem, the other is foo. So for each lorem we should be adding ipsum for it. So here we can see that lorem ipsum, lorem ipsum, lorem ipsum, and for each foo we should be giving it a bar value. But the bug that we have here is that we have this foo query param, but the value of it is ipsum, it's not bar. So we need to debug to see how we are constructing that URL and how does that bug actually happen. So we can do the same thing by going into the elements panel, and then we inspect that button to check the event listener that we have. So here on this dummy button, we have this event listener that is attached to it. So as soon as you click over the fetch and generate URL, it runs this function that we have here. So let's just set a breakpoint. Okay, so let's just hit it once again. So this basically runs this fetch URL data. So let's check what it actually does. We can just click step in order to move into that function, or we can click F11 to step into it. Here it just sets a normal loading element to indicate that there is something that is going on, and then it returns this promise. So let's just check how does that promise is resolved. Let's hit execution once again. So this is the dummy data that I was talking about. So let's just imagine that there's an API that returns an array of the query params that we have. So here, for example, we have lorem, 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 and one of the values which is foo, for example. And then after a set of time, it resolves that function. So let's just set a breakpoint here to anticipate that resolve API params data for us. So we just hit resume once again, we wait 3 seconds, and then we can see that the debugger stopped here because the resolve got called, and then this got executed. So here we have this const URL, and then it creates this dummy URL. So the issue should be into this URL, because this is the function that creates this whole URL and constructs it. So let's just step into it by hitting F11. So here it just passes the array of links that the API returned for us, and then it tries to construct that final URL for us. So it just loops over them. We have this final URL. Let's just set a breakpoint to step over it. So the issue that we have here is that it goes over all of those items, and then it performs a certain operation, which is to add to URL. So let's just step into this to see where it leads us. So it gets into this add URL. It passes that param, which is the value here, and then it also gives us the final URL in order to construct that full param for us. So the issue that we have here is that this set of data is large for us, so we can't just set a breakpoints here and just step over each param that we have in order to check from where does this issue comes from. It's very hard for us to just keep clicking here to check. So there is a better alternative in order to pause on a certain condition that we have, instead of having to keep clicking, keep debugging one by one. We can set a conditional breakpoint. So in order to do that, we can right click over any line that we have here. Here we have this option, which is add conditional breakpoint. Let's click over it. So the value that we are interested in, which is foo, we are not interested into any lorems. So here you can just add any expression that you want to check before pausing. So the expression that you are interested in, which is param, to be equal to foo, let's say. Okay, so we can see here that there is this orange breakpoint that got added, and it has this question mark added to it. We can also edit that breakpoint if we are not, if you want to edit for any reason. And then let's just hit this resume script execution in order to stop over that foo param. So we can see here that the execution has actually stopped over that all of the script as soon as the param equals to foo, as you can see here. And if we just hover over it, we can see that the value is actually foo. Then we can move step by step in order to check from where this issue comes from. So here in the code it says if param equals foo, just move into it. So we are expecting to just step into this if the code is actually working. So we just set 2 breakpoints, and then we resume execution to see where does this leads us to. So we can see here that it got skipped. It didn't stop on the param equals foo. The reason is that after checking this, we can see that there is this lowercase that isn't accounted for. So we can either switch this into lowercase, or even just move into the code, check add to URL, then we can just switch this over to capital case. So that should be the issue here for us. Let's just hit reload once again. We click fetch. Let's just remove all of those. We are interested only into having that conditional breakpoint. Let's just resume once again. So we are not interested into having the lorem, we are only interested into having the conditional breakpoint. We hit click, we move once again. We can see here that the execution has stepped into this and the issue should be resolved for now. We can see here that the issue got resolved. Another option that we can have, like instead of having to add that conditional breakpoint directly from the DevTools itself, we can do that by adding a debugger keyword from the code itself without the need to add that conditional breakpoint. So if you have access to the code itself, it should be easier for you to stop the execution right from your code without the need to go into the DevTools and search for the place in which you want to pause that execution. So if you go here, for example, we have this @URL, which is the same function. If you write debugger, which is a keyword that is preserved for the JavaScript or the API, hit save, and then let's just remove this breakpoint. Let's just fetch and generate the URL once again. You can see here that the DevTools got paused over that debugger keyword, so it's just like adding a normal breakpoint here. Also, another cool thing that you can use, which is a cool trick that I personally use on a daily basis. So it's not just the debugger keyword. Like if you want to add a conditional breakpoint here, you can just write the same condition that you've like we've just written into DevTools. You can just do that, the same thing here. So this will pause if param equals foo. Let's just check this once again. Wait a second. You can see here that the debugger keyword got ran as soon as the condition has become true. Okay, I just want to show you something here to the right. There is this call stack window that we have. So this call stack allows us to trace the execution in order to check from where does this @URL got ran from. So like the whole stack over that execution process. So here the @URL is ran from this anonymous function. So if we click over this function, it will take us to the place in which this @URL is executed. So this anonymous function here, this the for each one, which is the one that we are targeting. See here this little arrow. If we just move one step back, we can see that this originated from this create dummy URL function, and then there is this anonymous function, which is the then anonymous executional function. So it's really helpful for us in order to check from where does a certain function gets executed from. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the third bug that we have. So let's just clear all of the issues that we have here, all of the code that we've just written. Let's just hit refresh once again. So we basically covered all of the main items that or the main features that this sources panel provides for us. Another thing that I just want to touch upon, which is the sources panel allows us to do two main things, which is to open a file or to run a command, as you can see here if you are not opening any file. So there are two shortcuts for it. If you click Ctrl P, you can type whatever file that you want to open. If you want to execute any command, you just hit Ctrl Shift P, for example, ignore list